Welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead, where on my channel I focus on food, growing it, preparing it, and preserving it. Today we are going to be preparing some. I am in the mood to make some granola, so we are going to make two different granola products. Granola is an excellent food for your overall health, and by making it at home, you get to control the ingredients, especially the sugar content and the price. Granola can be really expensive at the store, but if you have just some basic ingredients at home, you can make it yourself, and it is absolutely delicious. However, most of the ingredients can be calorie dense, so you just want to make sure that you're controlling your portion size. Today, we are going to be making granola bars, and then we're also going to be making some crunchy granola, and I'm going to show you how to get your granola crunchy. We're going to start with the bars because they're going to take about 2 hours in the refrigerator once everything is mixed into my 8x8 pan. And then we will get on to a granola. For starters, I'm just going to get my pan ready. So this is an 8x8 Pyrex baking dish, and I'm going to line that with some parchment paper, and I'm going to make sure that the parchment paper goes over the sides of the pan so that when it is done chilling in the refrigerator and it has fully set up, I can easily lift it out of the pan with the sides of the parchment paper. And I find it's really easier to get parchment paper to fit molded into whatever dish you're using if you crumple it up first. That's ready to go, so I'm just going to set that aside, and we're going to start with the dry ingredients. You have many options when it comes to the nuts and the seeds that you put in a granola. Today I'm going to be using some pecans as well as some almonds. Both of these are raw. The pecans I've had for a very long time, I think probably close to 2 years at this point, but I've kept them in my freezer and they are perfectly fine. And the almonds are what I picked up recently in my Azure Standard order. I'm going to be using half a cup of each, but I need them chopped, and these are in the whole form. So I'm just going to run them really quickly through my food processor. So there's a half a cup of pecans. And half a cup of almonds. And pulse those until they are in pieces. Just take a look. You could use also walnuts, macadamia nuts. You could use peanuts if you'd like. Really versatile when it comes to granola. I'm just going to pour those into a bowl, and that is going to start our dry ingredients. Next, I'm going to add oats. I'm going to do 2 cups of rolled oats. Rolled oats have better nutritional value than your instant oats, so I would recommend using whole rolled oats. And then I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of raw pumpkin seeds or pepitas. Quarter cup. Talk about energy with all your nuts and seeds. This is an energy dense food. 1/4 cup of sunflower seeds. I don't have raw sunflower seeds at home right now, so I'm using roasted salted. So I'm going to cut back just a little bit on the amount of salt I add to this mix. If you have raw sunflower seeds, feel free to use those. We just keep these on hand because we use them a lot in salads. They're delicious. So 1/4 cup of those. 1/4 cup of dried cranberries. This was part of my last Azure order as well. And I had to open and try them, and they are delicious. So 1/4 cup of those. And a 1/4 cup of dried apricot. These I have also had for a really long while. I've had them in my freezer. I'm just going to use what I have here. It might be more, it might be less than a 1/4 cup. I'm just going to get those chopped down and throw them in. And even though they're kept in my freezer, they're soft enough to easily chop. You just want them in bite-sized pieces. And I think apricots paired with cranberries is going to be delicious. that's a 1/4 cup. So this is probably a 1/2 cup in all. Recipe is written for a 1/4 cup, but I'm gonna use 1/2 cup just to get them used up. And that's it for our dry ingredients, other than some dark chocolate chips, but I'm not gonna add those just yet because our wet ingredients are gonna go onto the stove and get heated up and then poured over the dry ingredients. And I don't want that to melt the chocolate chips. So I'm gonna wait to add the chocolate until this is mixed together and slightly cooled down. But for now, we can set this aside and we can get working on the wet ingredients. We're gonna need some healthy fats for the wet ingredients. I'm gonna be using the almond butter that I got at Azure Standard in my December order. We're gonna use 3/4 cup in all. I do need to get this stirred around because this is natural peanut butter and the oil does separate from the solids. So let me just get that mixed really quick. I haven't tasted or used this yet. I just made sure the jar was open and ready to go because I have a hard time opening jars, and this one was really hard to open. Looks good. Smells good too. I probably should switch to almond butter over peanut butter. I don't eat peanut butter a ton. Sometimes on apples or celery, I don't eat it a ton, but peanuts can be inflammatory. I think almond butter is probably less inflammatory than peanut butter. All right, that looks good and mixed. So I'm just gonna dole out 3/4 cup, and I'm gonna add that to the saucepan that I have here on the stove. So I've got a 1/4 cup here and a 1/2 cup. That looks perfect. So we'll get those into my pan. Now you definitely want to make sure that whatever nut butter you're using is nice and soft, and that will happen during this heat up process on the stove, which only takes a couple of minutes. I'm going to use some coconut oil. You can use butter, you can use olive oil. I'm choosing to use coconut oil, and I'm going to use 3 tablespoons of that. This is a minimally processed coconut oil, so it does have a slight coconut flavor to it. Coconut oil is a really, really healthy fat for you. I'm going to use about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just going to eyeball that though. And I'm going to use 1/2 cup of maple syrup. This is a grade A, dark, robust, organic maple syrup that I get from Azure Standard. So 1/2 cup of that. And I'm just going to turn this onto a medium low for about 2 or 3 minutes, stirring it just to get everything well combined and melted together. And in here, I'm also going to add just a little pinch of salt. So recipe is about 1/2 teaspoon, but because I have these salted sunflower seeds, I'm just going to do a little pinch. There are many benefits to consuming granola. The oats and the seeds and the nuts are excellent sources of fiber, which help aid in overall digestion. They help to regulate blood sugar, and they help to promote a healthy heart. They're also a good source of healthy fat. The nuts and the seeds, and depending on the oil that you use, they do provide a healthy fat, which is really beneficial for heart health. And protein from the nuts and the seeds, and protein helps with muscle building as well as to keep you satisfied. And then you also get a really good dose of vitamins and minerals, iron if you use seeds and nuts and even dried fruits, magnesium also from the nuts and seeds, and a good source of vitamin E from the nuts and seeds. The iron helps with your oxygen transport, energy production, and your overall immune function. The magnesium helps with energy production. It helps with muscle and nerve function. It helps with bone health and also blood sugar control. And the vitamin E is an antioxidant that helps to keep your cells healthy and also provides you with some immune support and helps keep your skin healthy. Go ahead and get that heat off. Everything is mixed together and blended well, and we are ready to combine the wet and the dry. We have a nice bowl of oats and nuts and dried fruit. We're just going to pour this mixture in and make sure that it's well coating all of the dry ingredients. This smells amazing. So good. Ridiculously good. That looks good, and it has cooled off slightly especially from like the apricots that had come out of the freezer, as well as the pecans that had come out of the freezer. So we can go ahead and put our chocolate chips in here now. We're gonna be doing a 1/4 cup of dark organic chocolate chips. And I store mine in a Mylar bag in the freezer. It helps preserve them for a really long time. I think I've had these for close to 2 years, and they are still perfectly good. I get these at Azure as well. And this is just going to add that just little bit of extra pop of sweetness, very small amount since this is a darker chocolate, and then also that little bit of chocolate flavor running through here. So we'll get those mixed in. How easy was that? And this is amazing. What a healthy snack that you can take on the go. You can take in the car, you can take hiking, you can even put some at your desk to have when you just can't get away for lunch and you need a little bit of boost of energy. I am really looking forward to having some homemade granola bars that will be ready in just a couple of hours. Now I'm just gonna drop that into my parchment paper lined 8x8 Pyrex baking dish. And that maple syrup in here is really gonna help bind it. The coconut oil is gonna re-solidify in the refrigerator or in the refrigerating process. So these are gonna end up being nice, solid bars when they're done. You can sub the coconut oil. You can also sub the maple syrup if you'd like. So instead of the maple syrup, you could use agave nectar or you can use honey. I'm now just getting this really pressed down firmly into the pan. So I've got it spread evenly, or as evenly as I can. And now I'm really compacting it down into, a dense consistency for a bar. And this will be a truly great option this week at work as a lunch replacement. It could be a light snack. It could be, I probably wouldn't do it as a bedtime snack because this is just chock full of energy, but this is ready to go into the refrigerator for at least 2 hours. It should be pretty well set up by then, but I'll test it. And once it is firmly set up, then we will get it out and we'll cut it into bars and be ready to go. Let me do a close up and let you see what this looks like before we get it into the refrigerator. Look how yummy that looks. And I'm not kidding. This smells incredible. I can't wait to give these a try. Folding over the parchment paper like this gives you an opportunity for one last smush inside your pan, just to make sure that it is really packed in there. You don't want them too thick, and you want them to be a chewy granola bar. So now this is ready to go into the refrigerator. For our crunchy granola, we're gonna be using a lot of the same ingredients, and I'm definitely gonna be using the same bowl so I don't have to wash it and dirty another one. We're gonna start with 3 cups of rolled oats, a 1/4 cup of nuts, a 1/4 cup of seeds, a 1/4 cup of coconut flakes, unsweetened, a 1/4 cup of the maple syrup. You can use honey instead, a 1/4 cup of melted fat. I'm gonna be using coconut oil, and then a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and I'm gonna be using Swerve rather than brown sugar, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of baking soda. The baking soda is going to help crisp and brown the granola while it is in the oven because I like my granola crunchy, and it's also going to help enhance the sweetness of the ingredients as well. But you want to be careful not to add too much baking soda because it can end up tasting bitter and even soapy. So just be careful if you're going to use the baking soda. Don't do more than a 1/4 teaspoon. I'm gonna get the dry ingredients together in a bowl, then I'm gonna melt the wet ingredients just like I did here on the stove. It's just going to be a lot faster, and then we'll mix everything together. 3 cups of rolled oats. 1/4 cup of nuts. I am going to do the same combination I did before. I'm going to do the pecans as well as the almonds. And in case you don't have a food processor, you can chop your nuts by hand as well. Just be careful and expect for them to move around as you're doing this. Just go slow and take your time, especially if you keep them in the freezer like me. They're not going to be frozen, but they are going to be a little harder to cut down. Ready to go. Let's see how much this is. This is a 1 cup. That's perfect. 1/4 cup. Now we need a 1/4 cup of seeds. For seeds, you can use pumpkin seeds, you can use sunflower seeds, flax seeds, chia seeds, even sesame seeds. So whatever you want, just a 1/4 cup. I think I'm gonna add a mix here. I think I'm gonna do some pumpkin, some chia, and some sesame. I'm gonna scoop out some sunflower seeds, not quite enough to fill a 1/4 cup. So I'm gonna add some sesame seeds to this. And some flax seed. ¼ cup. And then the only thing left to add in here is our unsweetened coconut flake. Shredded coconut is also something that I buy at Azure Standard in kind of a larger quantity, and then I just put it in these Mylar bags, and it stores for a really long time this way. So 1/4 cup. Of coconut flake. Just gonna get that mixed together. And we'll set that aside while we do our wet ingredients in the pan again. This has just a tiny smidge of almond butter in there. I think that's gonna be okay. We're going to start with a 1/4 cup of the maple syrup, and then we need a 1/4 cup of melted fat. I'm going to use coconut oil. For a 1/4 cup of coconut oil, we're going to use 4 tablespoons. And then we need 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And again, I'm going to use Swerve because I have that and I want to get it used up. I think my other tablespoons are in the dishwasher. I need a dry vessel. So we're going to use my bread machine cups. And we are just going to heat this on low until we get that coconut oil to melt down and blend well with the maple syrup and the brown sugar. Now the other thing I do need to add in here is the baking soda. Just wanted to get this started melting first. Not much, just a 1/4 teaspoon. Almost melted completely, just a little bit more coconut oil to go. All right, good to go. Totally melted. Now I'm going to marry the two together, but first I'm going to turn the oven on to 350 degrees to get it preheated. And then I'm going to pour the wet into the dry. And we are going to quickly get that blended well together. That looks good, but we're going to do a surprise at the end, so stay tuned. I am going to add just a little bit of my cacao nibs in here. I've had these for quite a while. I rarely use them. I want to get them used up, or at least some of them used. So I'm just going to sprinkle a tiny bit in here. These are very strong because they're 100% cacao. And then I'm just going to get those mixed in. That's not the surprise though. The surprise will come after these come out of the oven. Now you can line a baking sheet with some parchment paper. I have some silicone mats that I can put into the oven, so that's what I'm going to use. And now we're just going to spread this evenly across the baking sheet. And this is a standard half sheet. And just get those spread around. Here we go. That looks really good. And now this is going to bake for 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm going to stir it at probably the 7 to 8 minute mark. So total of up to 20 minutes with one stir. That is our 8-minute timer, so let's get that out. Keep the heat in the oven, and we're gonna get that stirred around. This smells incredible. And now I'm gonna let this go for another 8 to 13 minutes. It's still pretty wet. We want it dried out. So back in the oven we go. I'll set my timer for another 8 minutes, but we might need an additional 5 on top of that. I let that go for the full 20 minutes, and now it's time to get the tray out of the oven and see how we did. This is deeply golden brown. It looks incredible. It's still quite soft. It needs to harden up during the cooling process, but before I let it do that, I'm going to add the last couple surprise ingredients that I think is going to take the texture and the flavor over the top. I'm going to add some of my freeze-dried cherries. These are tart cherries, and they freeze-dry really well. I'm just going to sprinkle some in there. And I do know that by adding the freeze-dried food in here, it's going to be exposed to air and moisture. I know that, but this is going to be kept in the refrigerator for the week while we enjoy this. They'll be fine in there. And I'm also going to add in some freeze-dried blueberries. So good and so healthy for you. So cherry and blueberries in the granola. I don't think they'll maintain their crunch after they mix with the moisture, the heat, the humidity that this is going to give off, but it's still going to be phenomenal. I'm just going to get that mixed together. And then we are going to let this cool and harden. And we're going to let that cool completely while we wait for the granola bars to finish setting up as well. So I will bring you back when both are ready and we'll give them a try. This looks incredible, absolutely delicious. Our bars should be totally set at this point, and our granola should be ready to be broken up into clusters. I am so thrilled with the way this came out. It's just lovely and it smells incredible. Let's take a look at our bars. So we've got the parchment paper here that had overlapped on the sides, so I can just easily lift this right out of the pan. Then we can unwrap our bars, or our big block at this point. This should yield about 10 bars in all, so I'm gonna try to cut it so that we get 10 servings. And at 10 servings, this would be about 494 calories per bar. I'm gonna score it, or make 4 notches in here. That'll make five pieces, and then we can cut it in half this way as well. So let's see if this knife is sharp enough. These smell really, really good too. I can smell the almond butter in these bars, maybe just because I'm cutting into it. And at almost 500 calories a bar, this would be a pretty good meal replacement, or a pretty calorie-dense snack, but loaded with nutrition. All right, so we've got now 5 strips and then I can cut those in half. And you know, they're not all gonna be exactly the same size, so the calories per bar are gonna vary a little bit. Especially I'm looking at this last bar here is a lot wider than some of the others. All right, that came out well. I'm gonna get those plated up so you can see them better in just a minute. Let's take a look at the granola. We are on a non-stick pad on here, remember? So I can kind of lift that corner up. Oh yeah, this is breaking up, but it is also creating some clusters. Not as many as I would expect, probably because I used the maple syrup instead of, say, honey as an example. The maple syrup is going to be just a little less sticky, but this looks incredible. I'm pleased with this. So I am guessing on here that we have about 12 servings, and that would be about 200 calories a serving then. This looks great. We're gonna get this into some bowls and plate up the bars, give you a closer look, and then we're gonna do a taste test. I do have some recipe cards for these, so I will just stick those right up here as I'm plating this up. And you'll notice that I am calling this granola You Choose Crunchy Granola, and I've not listed any specific seeds or nuts or fats or sweeteners on here. But if you look down at the note at the bottom, I give you the options that you can choose from, and certainly there are probably others you can choose from. The calories that I mention and the serving size that I mention at the top of the recipe card is based on the ingredients that I used specifically today. And this is going to be an amazing snack / lunch, especially these bars. Easy grab and go nutrition that you can eat anywhere. Just be sure you have a napkin because the bars are a little bit sticky. There's so many options you can choose from when making your own granola products, and you can make them as healthy and as calorie and nutrient dense as you want. So let's take a look at these. We've got our bars and we've got our granola. We're gonna give these a try. Look how lovely that granola came out. It definitely did darken. It is not burned. Let's give that a try. I'm gonna try a little cluster here that has some blueberry in it. Oh my goodness, that is so good. So good. Wow. Then of course we have little pops of freeze-dried cherries in here too. This is amazing. We've got some nice clusters in here. The flavor is so good. It's not too sweet. It's not overpowering. It's lovely. This can be enjoyed, of course, as cereal. You can also pop it in with some yogurt. You can use it as a snack. And now for our homemade granola bars. Now these should keep in the fridge just fine for up to a week. You can also freeze them. I would wrap them in some parchment paper individually and then put them in a Ziploc bag to freeze them, and then just pull them out the night before you want to use them, or maybe the morning of if you're gonna have them a little bit later on in the day. But these look absolutely incredible. Let's give those a try. You can see all the different ingredients in here. You've got your dried fruits and your nuts and your seeds, and then those oats and that lovely sweetener. This is gonna be absolutely delicious. I don't want to eat a whole one because they are pretty calorie dense and it's not really time for me to have a meal. I'm just going to take a piece of one. We've got the dried fruit in here. It just looks incredible. Wow, these are incredible. They're part chewy, they're part crunchy. That little bit of chocolate mixed with that apricot especially is really good. They're super dense, they're flavorful, they're just the right amount of sweetness. These are really, really good. And our granola growing up, granola was one of my favorite cereals, but my parents didn't really buy cereal or milk. If we were lucky, we had a box of powdered milk in the cupboard that we rarely touched. And for cereal, we either had shredded wheat or grape nuts. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but when you're a kid, they're not your go-to. So we didn't really have cereal. Whenever we were afforded the option of picking something out, I would always pick granola, or if I was at a friend's house and they had that, I would get really excited because I just absolutely love granola. It's so incredibly tasty. I'm thrilled to have some of this. It's less expensive to make it yourself than to buy it in the store. And again, you get to control the ingredients, you get to control the nutrients as well as the sugar content. I think that making granola at home is well worth the effort. Just look and see what you have. I didn't have to buy anything for this. I have a pretty well-stocked pantry, but I didn't have to buy anything for it. I found some stuff in my cupboards and in my pantry and in my refrigerator and in my freezer, and I was able to make a nice big batch that I can easily replicate whenever I want. And these bars are gonna come in so handy. I will probably keep a few in the fridge to enjoy this week for anybody who wants one. And then I'll put some in the freezer as well. But these were so easy to make. I could make these every week. I won't because they are pretty calorie dense. But I could make these every week and enjoy them just whenever we wanted them. Thank you so much for joining me for another Sunday fun day in the kitchen. My name is Kelly. You're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I do hope you come back and visit again soon.